Dr. Elena Reyes stood before the United Nations Security Council, her presentation slides depicting the asteroid's projected path toward Earth. The room remained deathly silent as world leaders processed the implications. 18 months until impact. Extinction-level event. With all due respect, Dr. Reyes, the Chinese representative finally spoke, we've assembled our finest minds to develop countermeasures. Nuclear options would only fragment it into multiple projectiles. Elena interrupted, her normally soft voice firm. I've reviewed every proposal. Deflection requires years we don't have. Destruction isn't feasible with current technology. The American representative leaned forward. Then why are you here? Elena took a deep breath. Because I have an alternative approach. She inserted her encrypted drive into the projector system. The quantum tunneling data appeared on screen, complicated equations, and wave patterns that meant little to most people present. 3 weeks ago, my team discovered something unprecedented during quantum research. She highlighted specific patterns in the data. Human consciousness can traverse temporal barriers when synchronized with these specific quantum frequencies. Murmurs rippled through the room. The Russian representative scoffed openly. You're proposing time travel. This isn't science fiction, Doctor. Elena didn't flinch. I'm proposing consciousness projection. We can't physically travel back, but we can send our awareness into compatible hosts in the past. People whose neural patterns match our own. The Secretary General stood. Even if this were possible, which I'm not convinced it is, how would this help us now? Elena activated the next slide showing a timeline of human technological development. By making strategic changes throughout history, we could accelerate our technological progress. Developments that would normally take decades could be compressed into months. You're talking about changing history, the British representative said quietly. The implications are less catastrophic than extinction, Elena finished. We've already modeled the temporal causality. Small, targeted interventions in specific nexus points. She displayed her final slide, a complex organizational chart labeled Project Cronus. I've identified 5 critical moments in history where minor adjustments could significantly alter our present capabilities. 5 teams projecting simultaneously. We would need full international cooperation, unlimited resources, and the best specialists from every field. The French representative shook her head. This is madness. A new voice spoke from the back of the room. Perhaps, but madness may be exactly what we need. All heads turned to Admiral William Chen, head of the Global Defense Initiative. He stood and approached the projection. I've had my team independently verify Dr. Rice's quantum data. It's sound. He looked around the room. If we pursue conventional approaches, models give us a 12% chance of survival. Dr. Rice is offering an alternative, however unorthodox. Elena felt a surge of gratitude. She hadn't expected support from the military. The Secretary General studied her intently. The ethical considerations alone will be addressed in full, Elena assured him. But right now, we need to decide. Do we resign ourselves to what seems inevitable, or do we try something unprecedented? The room fell silent again. Elena watched as the weight of human existence settled on these shoulders. Finally, the Secretary General nodded. 48 hours. Present us with a detailed protocol addressing safety, ethics, and implementation. He looked around the room. If Dr. Reyes can answer our questions satisfactorily, Project Kronos will receive provisional approval. As the council adjourned, Admiral Chen approached Elena. That went better than expected, he murmured. Elena nodded, but her expression remained troubled. There's something I didn't tell them. Oh. She lowered her voice. During our experiments, we detected temporal distortions that predate our work. Someone, or something, has been manipulating the timeline long before we discovered it was possible. Admiral Chen's eyes narrowed. Are you saying we're not the first? I'm saying we might be walking into a war we don't understand yet. The Cronus training facility, hastily constructed beneath the Swiss Alps, hummed with activity as Elena walked through the central command hub. Holographic timelines floated in the air, ghostly blue threads stretching from prehistory to the uncertain future beyond the asteroid impact. Dr. Reyes called Commander Jackson Chen, Admiral Chen's son, and the military overseer of the project. The candidates are assembled in Simulation Room 3. Alina nodded, collecting her thoughts as they walked. 16 months until impact. Time was already slipping away. The room fell silent as she entered. 25 faces turned toward her. Historians, physicists, anthropologists, linguists, and military specialists from 17 countries. The best humanity had to offer. You all know why you're here, Alina began, activating the neural interface demonstration. A three-dimensional model of the human brain appeared, certain regions highlighted in pulsing gold. Consciousness projection has strict limitations that we must understand completely before your first missions. She gestured, and the model expanded to show neural pathways. You can only inhabit hosts with compatible neural patterns, people who think similarly to you. This is why you were selected not just for your expertise, but for your specific neurological profiles. Dr. Kenji Yamamoto, a quantum physicist from Kyoto University, raised his hand. How long can we remain in the past? 72 hours maximum before the quantum entanglement destabilizes, Alina answered. After that, your consciousness automatically returns to your present body. And yes, time continues to pass here while you're projected. Major Sarah Okafor, Special Forces, leaned forward. What happens to the host's consciousness while we're driving? A reasonable concern. Alina brought up new visuals showing dual neural patterns. The host consciousness remains present but dormant. They'll experience your time together as vivid dreams, nothing more. This is why we're targeting hosts at pivotal moments, but not historic figures themselves. We want to minimize temporal disruption. Alina continued through the briefing, explaining the careful calculations behind our 5 target periods, spanning from the 1940s to the early 2000s. Small inflection points where minimal changes could accelerate technological development along paths already taken, just faster. Remember the prime directive, she emphasized. No large-scale changes, no preventing major disasters, no contact with your ancestors. We're making surgical adjustments to the timeline, not rewriting it completely. After the formal briefing concluded, Alina noticed Kenji lingering by the temporal monitoring station, his brow furrowed as he studied the readings. Something troubling you, Dr. Yamamoto? She asked. He pointed to subtle distortions in the temporal field. These patterns don't match our projections. See these ripples? They predate our experiments by centuries at least. Alina's heart raced, so she wasn't imagining things, as if someone else has been traveling through time. Or something. Kenji adjusted the parameters, revealing more distortions. These aren't random. There's a pattern here, like deliberate interference. Later that night, Alina worked alone in her office, cross-referencing Kenji's findings with historical anomalies. Technological regressions that seemed to occur just as humanity approached significant breakthroughs. The Dark Ages, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the mysterious abandonment of promising research paths throughout history. A soft ping alerted her to an intrusion in the temporal monitoring system. Someone was accessing it remotely. She quickly traced the signal to Simulation Room 5, supposedly empty at this hour. The security feed showed the room was indeed empty, yet the simulation was running, displaying a message-forming letter by letter on the screen. They'd been watching us evolve for millennia. The asteroid isn't random. It's happened before. Alina froze as the final words appeared. This message is from your future self. Trust no one outside Kronos. Maya Rodriguez blinked rapidly as her consciousness settled into her host body. The disorientation lasted only seconds, just as training had predicted. She was standing in a cluttered garage workshop in Los Alamos, 1954. Breathing slowly, she allowed her host's muscle memory to guide her movements while accessing the mission parameters in her mind. Sarah, "You with me?" she whispered. Across the workshop, Dr. Sarah Lynn, now inhabiting the body of a young research assistant, nodded subtly. Neural sync complete. David and Marcus. A voice crackled through a primitive radio. In position at the university library, came David O'Coffer's response. Marcus is establishing contact with Winter's colleague. Maya examined her surroundings. Thomas Winter's workshop contained inventions decades ahead of their time. Anti-gravity concepts, advanced propulsion designs, and energy transmission systems that wouldn't be rediscovered until the 2040s. Their mission: recover these designs before Winters mysteriously abandoned his research and disappeared. "Let's work quickly," Maya said, moving toward the blueprint cabinet. 72 hours maximum in this timeline. As Sarah photographed journal entries with the specialized microcamera embedded in her host's wristwatch, Maya carefully sorted through Winter's papers. Something felt wrong. The organization was too perfect, as if someone had already been through these files. She paused at a blueprint labeled Gravitational Wave Nullifier. The mathematics were elegant but utilized symbols she'd never seen before, not standard notation from any Earth language. "Sarah," she called softly, "look at this notation. Does it seem off to you?" Sarah examined the symbols and frowned. "This isn't human mathematics. The concepts are translated into terms Winters could understand, but these base equations..." She trailed off, her scientific mind racing. Someone was feeding him ideas. Maya's fingers brushed against something embedded in the paper itself. Using her host's magnifying glass, she examined it. Microscopic technology, like nothing from 1954 or even 2087. Circuitry etched at the molecular level. "We're not the first visitors here," she whispered. That evening, gathered in their safe house, Alpha Team compared findings. David had discovered references to strange visitors in Winter's personal journals, figures who spoke in unusual cadences and whose eyes seemed to shift colors when not directly observed. "Listen to this entry," David read aloud. "My benefactors returned today. They explained the mathematics so clearly when present, yet afterward, I struggle to reconstruct their reasoning. They insist certain applications would be dangerous for humanity, almost as if they're guiding me down specific paths." Marcus returned with more troubling news. Winter's colleague Professor Allen remembers the day Winters abandoned everything. Said he became convinced someone was steering human development and became paranoid. He left a single note: "They harvest worlds." Back in 2087, Elena and the monitoring team watched as Alpha Team's findings transmitted through the temporal uplink. The implications were staggering. "They called themselves benefactors," Elena said quietly. "More like shepherds guiding livestock to slaughter." On the main screen, Kenji had assembled a timeline of similar technological suppressions throughout human history. The pattern is consistent. Whenever we approach certain technological thresholds, these interventions occur. The progress isn't stopped completely, just redirected or delayed. Admiral Chen studied the timeline grimly. "So this asteroid isn't a natural event?" "No," Elena confirmed. "Based on Alpha Team's findings, I believe we're dealing with an ancient species that manipulates developing civilizations. They allow technological advancement to a point, then reset with extinction-level events when those civilizations approach some threshold they've deemed dangerous." "But why?" asked Commander Chen. "What do they gain?" Elena's expression darkened. Maya found references in Winter's hidden notes to beings that feed on temporal energy, massive releases generated when civilizations collapse. They called themselves chronivores in his translations. The room fell silent as the implication settled over them. 15 months until impact. They weren't just fighting to save Earth from an asteroid. They were fighting predators who had been culling humanity for millennia. Commander Chen converted the main Cronus Command Center into a temporal war room. Holographic displays showed 5 distinct timelines where teams now operated simultaneously. 14 months until impact. Beta Team has successfully made contact with post-impact survivors, he reported as Elena entered. Dr. Lin is transmitting data now. The largest screen showed grainy footage from 2186, 100 years after the asteroid. Alina had expected to see total devastation, but instead witnessed a strange resilience. Humans lived in underground complexes built with technology that seemed cobbled together from multiple eras. Dr. Sarah Lin's voice came through, distorted by temporal interference. The impact wasn't completely devastating. These survivors, they were prepared somehow. They have technology we don't recognize, preserved from before the impact. How is that possible? Elena asked. If the chronivores reset civilization. They never fully succeeded, Sarah interrupted. According to our host's memories, certain groups maintained technological knowledge underground for generations. There's more. They have stories about the visitors who walk through time. They've been fighting the chronivores in their own way. On another screen, Gamma Team reported from Renaissance, Italy. We've identified 3 key figures whose work was suppressed, Dr. Marcus Williams explained. One mathematician developed computational concepts that wouldn't be rediscovered until the 20th century. His workshop was mysteriously destroyed in a fire the day before he planned to present his findings. Alina studied the incoming data from all teams, a pattern emerging. The chronivores are efficient, but not perfect. They target key individuals rather than broad suppression. Dr. Abigail Stone, the team's cognitive psychologist, had been analyzing the intervention patterns. There's something fascinating here, she noted, highlighting specific events. The chronivores consistently miss certain types of human innovation, particularly creative leaps that don't follow logical progression. What do you mean? Commander Chen asked. They predict development along expected paths, Abigail explained. But human inspiration, those intuitive jumps that seem to come from nowhere, those blindside them. They're like chess players who can see 15 moves ahead, but are confounded by an opponent who makes seemingly irrational moves. A new alert flashed on the main screen. Delta Team, operating in 1982, had encountered active chronivore agents. Captain Raj Patel's voice was tense as he reported. They appear human but move with unusual precision. They identified our temporal signature almost immediately. Did they engage you? Commander Chen demanded. No, Raj replied. That's the strange part. They seemed confused by our presence, as if they'd never encountered temporal travelers who weren't their own kind. Elena felt a spark of hope. We're surprising them. They've manipulated every species they've encountered, but they've never had one fight back on their own temporal turf. Admiral Chen joined them, reviewing the incoming data. We need to coordinate these teams across different time periods. If the chronivores can communicate across time, we need to develop our own temporal communication network. Impossible, Dr. Yamamoto interjected. The quantum entanglement isn't stable enough for direct communication between different time periods. Alina studied the quantum readings from each team. Something unusual was happening with the neural patterns of the projected teams, subtle resonances occurring between consciousnesses across different eras. Maybe not impossible, she said slowly. Look at these patterns. Our teams are naturally maintaining a form of quantum entanglement across time periods. It's faint, but it's there, something the chronivores apparently can't do. Admiral Chen leaned forward. Are you saying humans have a natural ability these creatures lack? I'm saying we might have an advantage they never anticipated. Alina replied, a new determination in her voice. We need to develop this capability immediately. If we can coordinate our teams across history, we could fight them at every point they've ever interfered with human development. Commander Chen finished, understanding dawning. For the first time since the asteroid's discovery, Alina allowed herself to feel something beyond desperation. Hope. Elena stared at the quantum readings in disbelief. The data shouldn't be possible, yet the evidence was undeniable. She summoned the core team to her laboratory with urgency. 13 months until impact. Human consciousness maintains quantum entanglement across multiple time periods simultaneously, she explained, displaying the neural scans from all 5 teams. This phenomenon doesn't appear in any species the chronivores have previously encountered, according to records Beta Team recovered from the future. Dr. Yamamoto examined the readings closely. The entanglement isn't just between present and past. It's between all active temporal projections, regardless of which era they're in. Like a quantum mesh network spanning history, Commander Chen realized. Exactly, Alina confirmed. While the chronivores operate as individuals moving through time, our consciousness naturally forms connections. We can potentially coordinate our efforts simultaneously across thousands of years. Captain Sarah Chen, who had replaced an injured Delta team member, immediately recognized the tactical advantage. We could create a temporal resistance network, sharing information, coordinating countermeasures, and establishing communication points throughout history. Admiral Chen nodded. But any obvious communication system would be detected and destroyed by the chronivores. Then we don't make it obvious, Alina said. We hide it in plain sight, encoded in human culture itself. Within days, the Chromis teams deployed with new mission parameters. In ancient Egypt, Marcus Williams guided architects to incorporate specific mathematical ratios into the Great Pyramid, ratios that would encode quantum formulas needed for the defense system in 2087. Leonardo da Vinci, influenced by Maya Rodriguez's host, began hiding technical schematics within his artwork and developing his famous mirror writing as a method to encode temporal communication. Johann Sebastian Bach, nudged by David Okuffer's host, composed mathematical patterns into his music that would later be recognized as precisely the algorithms needed for quantum field manipulation. We're creating a temporal tapestry, Alina explained to the United Nations Committee during their monthly review. Information and innovations distributed throughout human history, each piece meaningless alone but powerful when combined. As the network expanded, something unexpected began occurring. During a routine scan, Medical Officer Dr. Imani Okik noticed unusual brain activity in support staff with no connection to the projection teams. These patterns matched the quantum resonance of our teams, she reported, showing Alina the readings. And they're not isolated cases. Similar patterns are appearing in the general population. Alina studied the data with growing excitement. The quantum entanglement is spreading. Our work is having ripple effects beyond the direct temporal interventions. That night, reports flooded in from around the world. Ordinary citizens experienced vivid dreams of the asteroid. Artists spontaneously created images of defense systems they couldn't possibly understand. Children built toys that mimicked quantum field generators. This isn't random, Alina told Admiral Chen as they reviewed the global reports. Humanity is unconsciously joining our temporal network. In the monitoring center, an alert sounded. The asteroid had suddenly accelerated, reducing their timeline by 2 weeks. They've detected what we're doing, Commander Chen said grimly. Alina's tablet chimed with an incoming message, a temporal communication from Captain Chen in 1423 CE. The chronivores are changing strategy. They're appearing in greater numbers throughout history. Something about our network frightens them. We found records in a monastery describing their true form. They don't just feed on temporal energy, they need it to maintain their existence. Our resistance is starving them. As if confirming this revelation, Dr. Yamamoto burst into the room. The quantum readings around the asteroid have changed. It's not just a weapon, it's a vessel. The entire chronivore species is converging on Earth. Alina processed this information, pieces falling into place. They're not just eliminating a potential threat. This is a feeding migration. The temporal energy released by destroying an advanced civilization at its peak development would sustain them for millennia. Admiral Chen's expression darkened. Then we're not just fighting to save Earth. We're fighting an apex predator that sees us as its next meal. And for the first time, Alina added, a fierce determination in her voice, its prey is fighting back. The Epsilon team materialized in their Paleolithic hosts, the consciousness transfer more seamless than ever before. Dr. Imani Okik, leading the team in humanity's distant past, oriented herself beside a prehistoric campfire. Unlike the other missions targeting specific historical events, their goal was to understand something fundamental about human evolution itself. Neural sync stable, she reported to her team. Remember, we observe only. No direct interference with evolutionary pathways. Over 3 days, they studied the early humans, collecting genetic samples from discarded materials and recording neural patterns during sleep cycles. What they discovered stunned them all. These aren't random mutations, Imani explained upon their return to 2087. 12 months until impact. She displayed the ancient genetic sequences alongside modern human DNA. These markers were deliberately introduced approximately 200,000 years ago. The chronivores didn't just guide our technological development, they engineered our species. Elena studied the data, her hands trembling slightly. To what purpose? Suppression, Imani said grimly. The original human genome shows natural temporal sensitivity, an awareness of time beyond linear perception. They systematically deactivated it, generation after generation. This revelation transformed their understanding of human history. Those rare individuals throughout time who demonstrated precognition, temporal awareness, or prophetic abilities weren't anomalies. They were examples of the natural human capacity occasionally breaking through the suppression. The oracle at Delphi, Nostradamus, even children who remember past lives, Dr. Stone noted. Our mythology is filled with people who partially overcame this genetic tampering. The implications were clear. If humans naturally possessed temporal sensitivity, it explained why their consciousness could maintain quantum entanglement across time periods, and why the chronivores feared them enough to reset their civilization repeatedly. We need to accelerate the awakening, Elena decided, a bold new strategy forming. If we can partially reverse the suppression across generations, humanity's collective temporal awareness could become our greatest defense. The Cronus teams deployed with updated missions. Rather than simply hiding information throughout history, they now worked to subtly strengthen humanity's dormant abilities. In ancient Greece, Maya guided philosophers to develop meditation techniques that enhanced temporal perception. In 17th century England, Dr. Williams encouraged scientific exploration of prophetic dreams. Each intervention, carefully calculated to avoid detection, gradually strengthened the neural pathways for temporal sensitivity across human generations. Meanwhile, in 2087, the effects became increasingly apparent. Millions worldwide experienced not just dreams, but clear visions of the approaching asteroid. Children drew identical images of defense systems. Musicians independently composed harmonies that, when analyzed, contained exact quantum equations. The dormant ability is reactivating across the population, Dr. Stone reported, reviewing global brain activity data. Not just random individuals, we're seeing a synchronized awakening. During a test of the first quantum field generator, designed using knowledge gathered across time, a technician suddenly stopped working. His eyes unfocused as he made an adjustment to the calibration no one had authorized. "Why did you change that setting?" Elena asked him afterward. The man looked confused. "I don't know. It felt wrong before. Like someone was showing me how to fix it, but," he trailed off, unable to explain. Later analysis showed his adjustment had corrected a critical flaw that would have caused the system to fail. The technician had no background in quantum physics. Admiral Chen joined Elena as she reviewed the incident. It's happening everywhere. People with no specialized knowledge suddenly contributing critical insights to the defense systems. The temporal network is becoming a collective consciousness, Elena realized. People aren't just sharing information across time. They're sharing awareness. A proximity alert blared through the facility. The asteroid had accelerated again, now just 10 months away. Elena's tablet displayed a message from Captain Chen, projected in ancient Sumeria. Chronivore activity increasing exponentially across all time periods. They know what's happening. They're afraid of what we're becoming. The world transformed in ways no one could have predicted, As humanity's dormant temporal sensitivity awakened, the traditional boundaries of time began to blur. Elena watched from the Cronus Command Center as reports flooded in from around the globe. 9 months until impact. In Kenya, farmers planted crops in intricate patterns they couldn't explain. Satellite imagery revealed the formation's perfectly amplified quantum field signals. In Brazil, a 6-year-old girl who had never studied engineering sketched designs her parents recognized from news reports about the defense project. They submitted the drawings, which contained solutions to power distribution problems that had stumped the best scientists. "It's like the entire species is becoming a temporal antenna," Dr. Yamamoto observed, analyzing the global data. Past, present, and future connecting through human consciousness. The chronivores responded with increasing desperation. Historical records uploaded by Beta Team from 2186 documented a massive surge in temporal incursions throughout human history during this period. The aliens attempted to possess political leaders, scientists, and key defense personnel. But humanity's awakening served as an unexpected defense. People could now sense the alien presence when the Secretary General of the United Nations suddenly proposed abandoning the defense efforts. His staff immediately recognized the unnatural shift in his personality and removed him from contact until the temporal invasion subsided. "They're targeting our leadership," Admiral Chen noted during an emergency meeting, "trying to disrupt command structures." Elena nodded. "But they don't understand our new network. There is no single point of failure anymore. The quantum field generators, massive structures built on every continent, neared completion, constructed from components that technically shouldn't exist yet. Engineers incorporated designs from Leonardo da Vinci alongside algorithms from 22nd century programming languages. The entire system operated on principles pieced together across human history, assembled through the collective temporal awareness." During final testing, Elena received an urgent message from Dr. Lin in 2186. "We've accessed their historical archives," Sarah reported. "The chronivores don't just feed on temporal energy, they need it to maintain their physical form. They've harvested countless civilizations across the galaxy, always following the same pattern. Guide development to a certain point, then trigger extinction when the civilization reaches peak temporal energy potential." Commander Chen studied the temporal sensors surrounding the asteroid. "The readings are off the charts. There must be thousands of them converging." Not just thousands, Elena realized. Based on these readings, this is their entire species. They're starving. Our temporal network is disrupting their feeding patterns across history. This isn't just another harvest for them. It's survival. As the asteroid entered the solar system, now just months from impact, humanity's collective consciousness reached a critical threshold. Billions of people experienced simultaneous visions of the approaching threat. Rather than causing panic, the shared awareness created unprecedented unity. Countries redirected all resources to the defense effort without hesitation. Ancient enemies collaborated without question. The quantum field generators received power from a global grid working at perfect efficiency. When chronivore agents made their final desperate attempt to possess key scientists, they encountered something they had never faced before. Humans could now not only sense their presence but actively reject it. The temporal invaders found themselves pushed out of human minds by a collective will they couldn't overcome. In the Cronus facility, Elena monitored the defense network as the final countdown began. The asteroid was now visible in the night sky, a growing point of light carrying an ancient predator species intent on humanity's extinction. "All quantum field generators online," reported Commander Chen. "Global synchronization at 98%. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the connection to billions of minds, all focused on the same goal. For the first time in human history, the species acted as one consciousness, a temporal entity aware of its past, present, and possible futures simultaneously. "They created us," she said quietly, "limited us, harvested us, but they never understood what we could become." The countdown reached 0. Humanity prepared to face its predator. As the asteroid entered Earth's upper atmosphere, billions of human minds focused their awakened temporal awareness in perfect synchronization. The quantum field generators activated simultaneously across all continents, creating a temporal bubble that enveloped the planet. The air shimmered as Earth itself seemed to phase slightly out of normal space-time. In the Cronus Command Center, Alina monitored the dimensional readings. "Temporal displacement successful," she announced, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Earth has shifted 0.3 seconds out of standard temporal alignment. This microscopic adjustment, impossible for any conventional technology, was enough. On every screen around the world, people watched as the massive asteroid passed through the space where Earth should have been, continuing its trajectory toward the inner solar system. But something else happened that no one had predicted. As the asteroid passed through the quantum field, the chronovores traveling within it became visible to human perception. No longer able to hide beyond temporal perception, the ancient entities manifested as shifting, multidimensional beings of pure energy, their true form exposed for the first time in billions of years. "They're trapped in the quantum field," Dr. Yamamoto reported, studying the readings with astonishment. "The temporal bubble has pulled them into a state of quantum coherence with our reality." Through the global consciousness network, every human on Earth perceived these beings simultaneously. Emotions ranged from fear to fascination as humanity collectively witnessed the predators that had shaped their evolution and repeatedly culled their civilization. The entities struggled within the field, their energy patterns indicating confusion, and for the first time, fear of their own. They had never been exposed, never been vulnerable to a prey species before. In this moment of unprecedented connection, Dr. Alina Reyes made the most important decision in human history. Instead of using the quantum field to destroy the chronovores as many military advisors had planned, she adjusted the field parameters. "We're establishing communication," she announced, as the quantum frequencies shifted to allow direct interaction between human consciousness and the trapped entities. The first contact between humans and chronovores occurred simultaneously across billions of minds. Through the temporal network, humanity perceived the aliens' history, ancient beings who evolved the ability to feed on temporal energy, moving between dimensions to harvest developing civilizations at their peak potential. They had existed for billions of years, guiding and culling countless species. But they had never encountered a species that developed its own temporal abilities they had deliberately suppressed. They had never been challenged by their food source. They had never faced the possibility of extinction themselves. Through the connection, Alina projected humanity's choice. "We see you now, and we choose cooperation over vengeance." The shock rippled through the chronovore collective. In all their existence, they had never been offered coexistence by a species they had repeatedly harvested. They had expected destruction in their moment of vulnerability. The same fate they had delivered to countless civilizations. As the quantum field stabilized, the chronovores retreated, not in defeat, but in the first genuine diplomatic withdrawal they had ever undertaken. The temporal connection remained, a thread of communication between two species that could now perceive each other across the dimensions of time. In the months that followed, Earth established itself as something unprecedented in the galaxy, a temporal guardian. The awakened abilities spread and strengthened throughout the human population. Children born after the event demonstrated natural temporal perception without needing the genetic restrictions removed. Teams from the Cronus Project, no longer bound by the immediate threat of extinction, began identifying other developing civilizations throughout the galaxy that had been targeted for harvest. Using their unique temporal abilities, humans established contact with these species, helping them awaken their own suppressed potential. The universe entered a new era where time was no longer a predatory dimension, but a shared experience connecting all conscious beings. The chronovores, facing the end of their harvesting way of life, slowly adapted to a new form of existence, temporal symbionts rather than predators. As Dr. Alina Reyes looked out at the night sky a year after the averted impact, She felt the expanded awareness that now connected all humanity, past, present, and future, existing in a unified consciousness that spanned time itself. "We were never meant to be prey," she whispered to the stars. "We were always meant to be guardians."